said they left me something at the bell desk at the Wynn. So just heading over there now to scoop it up. First, we gotta find the bell desk. Hi. Yes, I think somebody's left me something at the bell desk. This is the number S003835.
I can release this to you.
It looks too good.
Number 21?
It looks too good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I don't drink anymore, but
okay.
What can I say? I'll just give it to you.
That's the one. Here you
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Have fun in there.
All right, you too.
Right there on the cut through there.
Got it.
You have a great, how do you say it? Neeme?
Neeme, that's right.
You have a great time, Mr. Neeme.
Thanks a lot.
Take care. And you want to share that, man?
Here you go. Hit it real quick. And Shay, thank you guys. Little note in here to Andrew, this is a favorable whiskey. We hope you enjoy. Keep up the amazing work with the blog from Mick and Shay, Ireland. Look at that. The Ace of Shamrocks, Faith, Hope, Love, Luck, 4-leaf clover. P.S. Sorry I'm not an artist. Shay, you're an artist in my mind. And a beautiful one at that. Cheers, guys. Just gotta put this in the car. Best vlog watchers in the world, I told you. Likely a short session today. It's pretty late. It's already after 10 o'clock p.m. All right, just hopping in the 2-5 game. We'll be in for 1500. Also keeping an eye on 5-10 games as always. 2-5, no limit, Texas Hold'em, in for 1500. All right, just taking a break here. Few quick hands to go over, some interesting stuff that's happened already so far. So I've been playing for maybe 2.5 hours or so. Let's get into it. So in the first hand, there's 2 limpers. Middle position makes it 15 to go, which is a tiny raise after 2 limpers. It's a pretty small raise to begin with. After 2 limpers, it's a very small raise. So it doesn't seem too strong. And I looked down an ace jack offsuit. Not really looking to go super multi-way here with this hand. I feel like I can take advantage of this $15 weak ISO raise. So I'm gonna put in a 3-bet and make it $50 to go. The second limper cold calls and the initial raiser calls as well. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop is ace 5-3 with 2 diamonds. They check to me. You could maybe make a case for pot controlling, but I think we can get value from other aces, from flush draws, from ace plus gut shots type hands. So I'm gonna put in a c-bet and I make it $80. Both players end up calling. Turn is an offsuit 3, so pairs the board, and I think that's a pretty good card because it lessens the chance that we could be up against a slow played set. So they both check to me again, and rather than giving a free card to a flush draw and the aforementioned perhaps ace plus gut shot type hands, I think another bet seems to make sense. So I'm gonna make a bet, but I don't need to bet too big. So I size it a little bit smaller. I bet $130. The first player calls and the second player folds. So heads up to a river. River's an offsuit 8, total brick. He checks it and I just decide to show it down. I check it back. He gives it the head shake, and as I tend to do versus recreational players, I just go ahead and turn my hand over. And I know other people out there like to wait for the free information, but as for me, I'm happy to just show down and not embarrass anybody by making them show their nothingness, their nothing hand. So I go ahead and show, opponent mucks, we take it down. In the very next hand dealt, the under the gun player limps, and we look down at 2 red jacks. Make it $25 to go, only the limper calls. So heads up to a flop, 10-7-3 with 2 spades, so we flop the overpair with the jacks. Under the gun player checks, I put out a c-bet of $40, somewhat of a wet board, flush draws and straight draws available. Jacks are somewhat vulnerable, so lots of hands that can be continuing here on this board. And we do get a call. So we're off to a turn card. Turn is a jack of spades, pretty interesting card. We turn top set, but the main draws of the flush draw and potentially 8-9 gets there as well. So good news, bad news kind of situation. The under the gun player leads out on this card. He bets $60. So since all those draws came in, I think it feels like a flat call is prudent here. Not looking to raise and then face a re-raise, face a 3-bet on this card. Happy to just maintain the pot size for now. A little bit of pot control. So I just go ahead and flat call. River's an offsuit queen, and my opponent studies the board, studies his hand for a while. Takes quite a while before deciding on a check. So in that instance, I kind of feel like I have the best hand here. It might be tough to get value from too many hands, like some middling pair type hands. So I think perhaps there's some small value to be had, but I think only if we size it pretty small here. So I match his bet on the turn. I bet $60 again on the river. He doesn't think too long and he just tosses the chips in there. I show my hand and he shows a jack, which means we cannot lose this hand. He eventually shows ace jack for an interestingly played hand, and we take this one down. I should note that I have a little bit of history with this player. Played a decent number of hands together, so there's a little bit of that at play, but nobody getting super out of line. Only a little bit out of line here and there. All right, one more hand before we get back after it here. I look down at pocket nines from under the gun, open it up to 20, standard raise. We end up getting 4 callers. So 5 ways to a flop here. Flop of 7-5-4 rainbow. There's one check, and I decided to mix it up a little bit. I decided to check it. There's 3 more players behind me to act, so I decided to just check it and see what they do, see what happens. It checks all the way to the button, who was the aforementioned player from the last hand. He doesn't have too much in his stack, but he jams his entire stack in there. At first I think it's $150, which is a snap call, but it ends up being $250. So it's a reasonable sized overbet. Not a monster stack here, but a little bit of an overbet. It folds to me, and since he was the last to act here and his stack is not very much, just 50 big blind stack, lots of hands here that he could have that we're ahead of. Some pairs, some top pairs, some pair plus straight draw hands. Sure, there's some hands that we're losing to, some 2 pairs, flop straight, sets, but I think there's enough to warrant a call here. Plus, once again, it's the player that we have some history against, so gonna be losing sometimes, but definitely gonna be winning sometimes, especially after under-repping the overpair. So I put in the 250, the other players fold, turn pairs the board, river's an offsuit king. He shows us a 7 and a 10 for a flopped top pair that doesn't improve. So we take this one down as well. So things going pretty smoothly off the bat here. Yes, there were some hands here and there where I whiffed the flop and had to check fold or fold to a c-bet. I know there's some people out there who think every hand is a flop set or flop overpair or what have you. There's lots of nothing hands. Lots of hands of nothingness here and there. Things that are not very interesting at all. So they don't make the cut, you know? This time is valuable that we share, and I don't think it should be spent talking about whiffing flops and folding to a single bet and single raise pots. Just my opinion, just putting it out there. All right, I'm gonna get back after it. Back to work. just never ends up being a short session. When I say it's gonna be a short session, quick session, never a short session. No real complaints though when it works out. All right, just chilling here in the in the Tower Suites lobby at the Wynn. So many cool little spots here in the Wynn, so many cool little bars, lobby bars, other lounges, casino bars, nooks and crannies. It's tough to beat the Wynn. A few more hands to discuss real quick before we wrap up this session. Call it a day, call it a night, morning. In this first hand, the under the gun player opens for $20. I'm in the hijack, I look at ace queen of diamonds. I make the call, not looking to 3-bet the under the gun player. First of all, he's under the gun. Second of all, he is one of the best players in my text message group. His name is John Kim. He's a total wizard. He used to play under the online screen name of Nikolak. Total crusher. One of the best poker players I've ever known personally. And so yeah, not exactly looking to 3-bet this particular player with ace queen of diamonds. So I call, heads up to a flop. Flop is ace 9 deuce rainbow. Pretty good flop for us, I would think. He leads out, puts out a c-bet, bets $25. Pretty straightforward situation. I go ahead and call. Turn seems like a pretty good card. Turns a 10 of diamonds, so it brings a backdoor flush draw for us. He continues betting, and he bets $55 this time. Pretty straightforward situation again, I think. I think he will be barreling a lot of his hands here, especially a hand like Queen Jack that picks up a open-ended straight draw. Perhaps a hand like 7-8 suited. I think that's still within his range from under the gun. So pretty straightforward situation again. I go ahead and make the call. River's another 10, and this time he bets $75. Now it's not that great of a situation because I feel like he might potentially shut down with his draws, with his bluffs that he picked up equity on the turn with. It's not a very good card for him to barrel, I wouldn't think, and especially for that sizing. $75 feels really value-y. Maybe he could have ace jack here. Maybe he could still have some bluffs in his range. Ace queen for that price just feels a little bit like a shrug call. So that's what I do. I shrug and call, toss the $75 in, and he shows us ace king. You know what? If there's anybody I have to give that $75 to, plus the rest of the pot, it's this guy. Enjoy the money, JK. Consider it a little tip for all of the poker tips that you've given me over the years. Enjoy the money. Plus, there's like plenty of other hands that I've actually taken off this guy. Thinks he's so smart. I've beaten this guy out of plenty of hands. Don't you worry about that. All right, next hand, there's an early position open for $15. I call just behind him with ace 3 of hearts. The button calls as well, so 3 ways to a flop. Flop is king 8 deuce with 2 hearts. The initial raiser checks. I think there's some merit to betting, but I decide to check it. The button puts out a bet, and he bets $30. The initial raiser folds. Not much choice here. I go ahead and make the call. Turn is an offsuit 4, so we add a gut shot straight draw to our nut flush draw. I check it over to him, and he bets $75. We pick up additional equity, and it's a reasonable size bet. So I go ahead and I make the call. River is pretty favorable for us. River is an offsuit 5. So we end up making the wheel. It's pretty disguised, and it's a question of whether we should check it over to him again, allow him to bet his good top pair type hands, potentially some sets, or just go ahead and fire somewhat on the big side, hope he puts us on some sort of a missed heart draw and pays us off. I debate for a little bit. I think for a little while. 2 things go through my mind. One is that he bet $75 on the turn. It's not the biggest sizing that he could have chosen. He could have gone a little bit bigger, which he might have done with some of his stronger hands, since he can get more value from more hands. For example, if he has a set, that leaves more potential top pair type holdings for me to call down with. To be honest, I'm not sure if that's really accurate, but since I felt like he only bet $75, I felt like he was trying to set a reasonable price to get to showdown, and that might make it less likely for him to go ahead and fire the river and try to get 3 streets. With that in mind, I went ahead and let out on the river card, and I bet $235. It's such a brick type card that it would be weird for me to try and represent anything on that board, but I still felt like leading out was the better of the plays. So my opponent goes into the tank, thinks for quite a while, goes back and forth between calling and folding, both physically and verbally. He's holding the cards over the line, holding the bet pretty close to the line. Eventually, he settles on a call, so that's really good news. We obviously have the best hand here. We show it down, and we take this one down as well. Doesn't get too much better than the backdoor wheel draw coming through, does it? All right, last hand of the evening before we call it a night. Folds to middle position, who min raises, makes it $10 to go. I looked down at ace 3 of hearts again, and I think you can either call or I think you can 3-bet as well. That $10 raise looks a little bit on the weak side to me, so I'm gonna go after that a little bit, and I'm gonna put in a 3-bet. Not too big, nothing too crazy. I make it $30 to go. Only the initial raise or calls. So heads up to a flop. Flop is queen, 10, deuce with 2 spades. Not too much for us to work with here. But he checks it over to us, and I decide to put out a c-bet. I bet $40, and my opponent calls. So we're off to a turn card. Turn is an offsuit 5, so we add a little bit of equity with the backdoor wheel draw. He checks it over to us, and we have a little bit of a decision between just checking it and looking to realize our equity here, or putting in the double barrel and considering a triple barrel on brick rivers. I think with our exact holding and with the board texture, I think a double barrel and potentially a triple barrel makes sense in this spot. We don't block any of the flush draws or straight draw holdings that he can have here. We don't block any spade draws. We don't block king jack. We don't block jack 9. We do block ace queen, we block ace 10, and there's other small to medium pairs that he could have as well. So I think with all that being said, it seems like our holding would make sense to barrel with. So that's what I do. I go ahead and I bet $100. My opponent thinks for a little bit, and then he makes the fold. So good news on the turn there. This time we don't have to rely on the backdoor wheel draw coming in. Take this one down with ace high. Happy to win it right here on the turn. So pretty smooth sailing for the most part for this session. There was a couple hands, like I said before, plenty of hands I should say, that we whiffed the flop, just check fold on the turn for very small pots. Didn't end up losing any big pots the entire session. So when you win the big ones, you lose the small ones. That's a pretty good recipe for winning session. We were in for 1,500, out for 28.38. That's a profit of 13.38, according to my math. No complaints in that regard. Good 2-5 session. Anytime you book a small 4-figure profit in a 2-5 game, can't complain about that. So the Wynn 2-5 continues to treat us well. One more thing. There's one more thing I want to talk about before we call it a day here. There's a question that I get asked pretty frequently in the comments and elsewhere. I get messages on Twitter, Instagram. There's a couple of FAQs that I get asked. One question, what camera do you use? All that stuff. That's boring. That's a boring question. The other question that I get asked most frequently is, what book should I read? How do you go about studying? What do you mean by spend time in the lab? What should I do to improve my game? This is the question that I probably get asked the most after what camera are you using? So when people ask me, what book should I read? The answer that I pretty much always give them is, there aren't too many poker books that I really recommend, mainly because I haven't read a poker book in years, and also because of the fact that I feel like the material in poker books, I feel like it gets pretty stale pretty quick. I don't feel like that's the best source for the best information that you can find today. Some people ask, how do they go about finding other poker players to talk to? They don't really have other players that they can talk to. That's the thing that's helped me the most over the years. But if you don't have these other poker players to talk to readily available, that's a little bit of a dilemma. So in my opinion, the next best thing that you can do is join a training site. I think that's where the best information is. And the next question after that is, which training site? So there's two that I want to recommend. One of them you probably haven't heard of, and one of them you probably have heard of. At least a lot of you will have heard of the second one. The first site is called Poker Sprout. They have a lot of really good information on their site, particularly for beginners, but not just for beginners, also for intermediate players. Some advanced information on there as well, but it's for sure the least intimidating site, training site, poker training site that I've ever been on. It's run by a guy named Reed Young, who's crusher, fantastic poker player. The thing is that you don't only want somebody who is a good poker player telling you what to do. You need to have the information presented to you in a way that you can digest it and not be overwhelmed by. So especially for beginner poker players, beginner to intermediate players, they even have videos like, what are the blinds? How do I sit down and get chips at the poker table? Information like that, but then stuff beyond that into intermediate level and beyond that as well. So I recommend checking out Poker Sprout if you are looking to get started in your poker training journey. At the intermediate and advanced level, perhaps you've heard of a site called Upswing Poker. Perhaps you've heard of one of the founders. His name is Doug Polk. Spends a little bit of time here on YouTube as well. Him and Ryan Fee, they run the site called Upswing Poker. These guys are at the top of their game. These guys are at the top of the No Limit Hold'em world. I assume you guys want the best info from the best players. Well, this is where to find it. Doug is literally one of the best players in the world when it comes to No Limit Hold'em. For intermediate to advanced stuff, this is the spot where you want to be. So that's pretty much it. These are the spots that I recommend. When people ask me what book should they read, I say, I don't think you should read a book. I think you should go check out a training site. Simple as that. And in full disclosure, is this an ad? It's not really an ad, but I will be honest that I have an affiliate deal with each of these sites. So if you guys do sign up with either of these guys and you do it through the links that I provide, it helps support the channel a little bit. It's not, I don't expect to be getting rich off of the referrals by any stretch. And also, if you watch these videos more for entertainment, if you play poker more for entertainment, I don't recommend joining a training site. I don't think you're gonna get too much out of it. I don't think you're gonna be the most motivated student, and I don't think you need to be a student of the game in order to enjoy playing poker. I think poker is a social game. I think there's many levels of enjoyment that you can find playing poker. I have found several of those levels at various times, drinking cocktails on the job or not on the job, on my days off at the poker table. So whatever, if that's how you approach poker, there's certainly nothing wrong with that, and I don't think everybody needs to join a training site. But if you're one of those people that has the question of how should you study poker, if you're one of those people who has the question of which book should I read, this is my answer to those questions. I think there's probably some people that might think that you don't need to do this kind of work. You don't need to sign up for a site that requires a fee, a membership fee. I think you can just play and learn as you go. You definitely will. You'll definitely learn as you go, but it's a question of how fast do you want to learn. When you have somebody else teaching you and training you and giving you the info that you will have to spend years acquiring on your own and figuring out the best lines and the best plays and what works and what doesn't work, it's going to save you money, especially playing a game that costs you money when you make mistakes. And not only that, it's going to save you a ton of time. It's like anything else. Whatever you're studying, whatever job you have, whatever task you're undertaking, it's always done much faster when you have other people helping you along, people that are more experienced. There's no difference between a professional athlete, CEO of a business, learning how to play a sport better, learning how to conduct business better, or learning a musical instrument.